Hello and welcome to Big Foodie Geek. I hope you're well. Today I'm going to be reviewing another cookbook, but today it's a very special cookbook. It's a special cookbook because it is one written by my lovely friends Lucy and Kelly, otherwise known as the Blossom Twins. If you've been around the channel a long time, then you may remember that I did a recipe from Lucy and Kelly's website, blossomtwins.com, way back at the start of the channel, which was their Nanna's Torta Caprese, and it was a very lovely recipe. I took it to work at the time and it went down really well. But if you're not familiar with the channel, then Lucy and Kelly are two of the most wonderful people I have the privilege of knowing. They are wonderful, kind and so positive, and they put out just a magnificent energy out into the world. They are just simply two of the nicest people you could ever hope to meet, and I am extremely lucky to be able to call them my friends. And they are also extremely cool because they both used to be professional wrestlers, and that is pretty damn badass as far as I'm concerned.
That twin telekinesis going?
Exactly!
Well, that's a pretty valuable tool as a tag team. More double team action into the splash!
Aside from wrestling, however, two of their main loves, two of their main passions are family and food, and that is where this cookbook comes from. It is called Fame de Lupo, which roughly translates to Hungry Like a Wolf. Not the Duran Duran song, but I do really love that song. This book is years and years of work and dreaming on their part, and is a tribute to their Nanna and Grandad, who they absolutely adored and who shaped them as people and their love of food as well. I won't recount the story because it is not mine to tell, but it is in the book, and you should read it if you pick up the book because it is very touching and beautiful. So when I saw they'd finally achieved the dream of writing this cookbook, I knew I had to do something for it on the channel and try out some of the recipes. It is packed full of beautiful, wonderful, simple, like Italian-inspired recipes, and I'm really hoping they will help me make some of those today because I love Italian food, but I probably don't make it as often as I could or as I should. So I'm doing 3 recipes from this today, and here are the ones that I've chosen. Number 1 is the lovely and simple sounding Nanna's Chicory salad. It's simply chicory and apple with a cider vinegar or balsamic vinegar and olive oil dressing. I've not had chicory very much, but I do love apple in salads, and this sounds beautifully fresh for a beautiful spring or summer's day. Recipe number 2 is gnocchi. Now, I have made gnocchi before, but I have to admit it turned out a little bit of a mess. I did follow a recipe, but I just made a huge mess, and the gnocchi came out a bit stodgy and not very light or anything like that. So I'm hoping the girls' recipe will allow me to cook this a lot better than I did previously, and hopefully I will make less of a mess this time. If it does turn out to be a mess, then I'm sure it's my fault, not the recipes, because well, you've seen me cook. And last but by no means least is Creme Caramel. Now, I absolutely love Creme Caramel. My mum used to make it all the time when I was a kid, but I've never actually made it myself, and it has been years since I had it. So I'm very excited to try out their recipe and to try and make it myself because it's so good. So these are the 3 recipes I'm going to attempt. I can't wait to try these out and hopefully make Lucy and Kelly's Nanna and Grandad proud. And I have to say it's an absolute joy and privilege to be trying out their cookbook because I know how much love and energy and time has gone into making this. And I know how much they've wanted this, and I know their Nanna and Grandad are going to be very proud. So let's get started, shall we? So we're starting off with Nanna's chicory salad. The girls say Nanna loved this salad. It's super simple yet so delicious, and rarely did a lunchtime go by that it didn't accompany our meal. The sharpness of chicory pairs well with the sweetness of the apple, and while you might not think pairing apple with vinegar would not work well, trust us, it really does. We would often sit pinching the slices of apple out of the bowl while we waited for the rest of lunch to be brought to the table. And I think this is a lovely one to start with because the other 2 recipes are going to be a bit more involved, and this one's going to be super simple, and it's lunchtime here, so it's a good one for me to quickly do and eat and enjoy, and then come back to do the other 2 recipes. So we just need 2 chicory bulbs, 2 sweet apples, 4 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar or apple cider vinegar, and a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. So I've got my 2 bulbs of chicory here. If you've not had chicory before, it's got slightly bitter outer leaves, but the inside leaves are slightly milder. And I've got some sweet apples here. These are quite small, so I've gone for 4 rather than 2. These are washed and ready to go, but I am just going to take off a couple of the outer leaves, just because I always find they're not the freshest. And I'm really not sure the best way to chop these, but I'm going to chop them that way. And I'm just going to chop these along fairly roughly. Then I'll pop these into my bowl. Then I'm going to slice up my apples as well. And then our apple goes in with our chicory. Let's distribute that apple through that chicory. Then I'm going in with 4 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar because I really like the flavour of it. Prefer it to apple cider vinegar. And then a drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. Don't know what constitutes a drizzle, but I'm being on the generous side. Then back in with my hands just to mix that all through. And that's it. So I'm just going to dish some of this up into a bowl and we can go give this a try. So there's our first recipe from Farmer de Lupo, Nanna's apple and chicory salad. I can smell that beautiful balsamic vinegar aroma coming from it. And I'm just going to tuck in because Nanna, I'm sure, wouldn't say stand on ceremony because she would ask, "Hey, mangiato," which means have you eaten? And I hope I didn't butcher that pronunciation. If so, I'm sorry, Nanna and Grandad. But let's get tucked in. Let's get some of that apple and chicory all covered in that balsamic vinegar and olive oil. Cheers, or what's the right thing to say in Italian? I don't know. Let me know. Cheers. That is absolutely lovely. I can see why that works so well. You get some of the beautiful sweet juiciness of the apples and then a bit of the bitterness from the chicory, which is lovely and crisp. But you also get some of the tang from the balsamic vinegar and some of the richness from the olive oil. It all works together so nicely. That is absolutely lovely. That would be a perfect accompaniment to anything really. But I would love some focaccia right now. That would go fantastically with that. And I did do a focaccia recipe way back on the channel, so I'll pop up a link or something to it somewhere. But that is beautiful, so I'm going to go off and finish that off. That is a wonderful start to our Farmer de Lupo recipes. If I was wearing a hat, I would take it off to Nanna. So I'm going to go and enjoy this, and then we'll come back and we will try making gnocchi, which will be a bit more challenging, I think. Right, we're now ready to move on to our gnocchi. And in the book, the girls have written, "Right, Grandad, what are we making? Shall we make gnocchi for lunch? Okay if you want to, but won't gnocchi take a long time? Oh ye of little faith." I've got to admit, that's what I've always thought about gnocchi in the past. Doesn't it take a bit too long? Isn't it a bit complicated? Well, apparently not, according to Lucy and Kelly's granddad, and who am I to doubt him? So we're going to give this a go, and hopefully I won't make a mess of it like the last time I attempted it. So fingers crossed, Lucy and Kelly's granddad's recipe will help us do that. So first of all, we need 500 grams of boiled potato. Boil the potatoes in salted water, then allow them to cool. Well, I've already done that because there's no point in me telling you how to boil potatoes. I've simply boiled them for about 45 minutes. And they say once cool, I've left them to cool, peel away the skin. The skin should be soft enough now that you can peel it away with your hands. So let's get in. You can already see that's coming away there. So it is coming away very nicely, very easily indeed. These aren't completely cool, but they're cool enough for me to handle. There are my peeled potatoes. And now they say if you have a potato ricer, use that to mash the potatoes. Well, I do have a potato ricer. I don't use it very often, but I shall use it today. Pop in a potato at a time and mash that right through. There we go, that makes a nice simple job of that. Next we need 300 grams of plain flour. They say to pop the flour on a tray. Well, I'm going to use my board right here. Then they say to make a well in the centre.
Well,
We need to pop in our potato, and in there also goes 1 medium egg and a tablespoon of olive oil and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now we've got to mix this all together, and when it comes together we can then knead it into a dough. So this is the messy part, but also kind of fun. Right, that's come together now. It's a little bit sticky, but I am going to now knead it for 5 minutes and hopefully it will come together and get rid of that stickiness. Right, after 5 minutes, that's come together into a very nice dough indeed. There's a little bit stuck to my hand, so I'm going to go clean that off, and then we can get on to the part where we shape our gnocchi. This is coming up much better than the time I did it, that's for sure. Right, I've chucked some more flour down to prevent any stickage. And now the girls say to cut the dough with a knife into sections, and then each section rolled into sausage shapes. So I'm going to cut it into 4. 4 sections seems about right. Then let's roll these into sausage shapes. Right, I'm dusting this board again. I'm going to keep working on this board rather than transferring to another tray or anything like that. So I want to minimise the amount of washing up that I'm doing. Now we've got to cut these into pieces about 1/2 inch wide. I'm going to eyeball it. Right, and now I've got to roll these into balls. Right, I've shaped these as best as I can. I put some to one side because this makes a lot and I don't need to make them all at the moment. And when they're into balls, the girls say to make a pretty little indent with your thumb. Well, I'm about as delicate as a brick to the face, so I'm going to use a fork just to press down on them a bit. There we go, those look pretty good actually. They are a lot better than the last attempt that I did. They actually look like gnocchi shapes. So we can now cook these up. So I'm going to get a pan of boiling water ready and we will get them cooked up and ready to eat. So I've got a pan of seasoned boiling water here. So I'm just going to pop in my gnocchi, and then that's going to come back up to the boil, and then they'll need 10 to 12 minutes or until the gnocchi float to the top. That's how you know when they're done. But we're going to need something to go with this, so let's make up something really nice and quick to go with our homemade gnocchi. So to go with our gnocchi, I'm going to make a very quick poor man's pesto. Poor man's pesto is essentially pesto, but using walnuts instead of pine nuts. Poor man's pesto is probably a bit of a misnomer because walnuts aren't exactly cheap, but they are cheaper than pine nuts per 100 grams. So we're going with those. In with those, we want some garlic. I've already crushed some. Squeeze of lemon juice. 60 grams of Parmesan cheese or Pecorino Romano. I could only get hold of Parmesan. 75 millilitres of olive oil. And lots of lovely basil leaves, about 60 grams worth. Make sure you got rid of as much of the stalks as possible. And then blitz that up until it becomes a paste. There we go. In seconds, we've got a lovely pesto there to go with our homemade gnocchi. So you can see after 10 minutes the gnocchi has risen to the top and has puffed up nicely as well. Nice big chunky gnocchi, these ones. That's down to me. So I can get these drained off and then served up with our lovely pesto. Okay, I've drained my gnocchi off and given it a little bit of time to dry as well, and I've also tossed it in some semolina, because what I'm just going to do is I'm going to fry it off in a little bit of olive oil just to get some crispiness on it, and then I'll toss it in my pesto. It won't need very long. I don't want to like blacken it or anything like that. There's a nice little bit of crispiness onto the gnocchi, and then serve it up with the pesto. So this oil should be hot enough now. Yep, a little bit of a sizzle there. And I'm just going to toss these about until they get a little bit of colour on them. After a few minutes of frying, we've got some lovely golden colour on our gnocchi, and it is lovely and crisp. So I'm just going to get this out of here, toss it in some of the pesto, and serve it up. So there's our homemade gnocchi all tossed in that pesto. And I'm just going to finish it off with some spots of mozzarella cheese. There we go, that looks absolutely gorgeous. So let's go give it a try because I can't wait. So there is our homemade gnocchi made from Grandad's recipe. That was absolutely simpler than it was the last time I attempted it. That was definitely 100 times better than my last attempt. So credit to Grandad, he knows what he's talking about. That was great, and it smells fantastic coated in that pesto, but it looked great by itself. So I do want to taste it just as it is. So I did save one bit of gnocchi, didn't coat it in the pesto because I want to taste them like this before I taste the one in the pesto. So let's give this a try. Oh yes, that is great. That is gnocchi. That is beautiful. It's light, it's not too chewy, it's got a bit of crisp on it from where I fried it, but that is wonderful. That just by itself is great. I would happily have that with a side of something else. But I have coated it in my cheats pesto, poor man's pesto, whatever you want to call it, and got some mozzarella cheese there with it as well. So I'm going to try this as well because this smells fantastic. So cheers. That is just about right. That is delicious. That has taken on the pesto, but it's not overpowered by the pesto. So you still get the lovely gnocchi, but also you get a bit of pesto. Well, that was a definite success as well after the apple and chicory salad as well, Nanna's apple and chicory salad. This follows up beautifully from that. This is more hearty, whereas the salad was a bit more light and refreshing. But we've still got dessert to go, so we're going to go attempt a creme caramel next. Let's see how that goes. Now last but by no means least, we're going to be making the creme caramel. So for that we need to start off with 8 tablespoons of caster sugar, which we're going to just put into a pan over a medium heat. And they say just to leave it until it starts to bubble, and don't stir it because that can make your sugar crystallize and then you get a horrible crystallized caramel. In fact, you don't get a caramel at all. I know from previous experience that you can put some water into your sugar as well to kind of help it along, but they didn't say to do that. I'm following their recipe today, so I'm just going to be putting this over a medium heat and just letting it do its thing. Once this has done its thing, it needs to go into the bottom of some ramekins or some other sort of like vessel for these creme caramels to cook and set in. So I'm going for these. I have used these plenty before, and these should be perfect. So once this is a caramel, I'm going to pop some of it, they say about a teaspoon's worth of the caramel, into the bottom of each of these. It says it makes 12, but we'll see how many this makes for me. I've got 8 of these things, so hopefully it will be enough to fill all of these up. It's taken a little bit of time, but you can see that it's just starting to bubble now. So hopefully it will soon all start to bubble away. That sugar will dissolve and we'll have a lovely caramel. I love this. It's just like a little volcano erupting. Right, that looks to have completely melted now, and it's tough to tell in the pan. Ideally use a lighter pan than I've got, but I do believe that should be a nice caramel. So I'm going to move that off the heat But now we've got to work quickly because that will start to set fairly quickly. So we want to get it into our little ramekins, or whatever you want to call them. Right, I've got my containers here, so I'm just going to pop in a little bit of caramel into the bottom, working quickly as I possibly can. But you can see how quickly that has set. That has just absolutely set so quickly. Oh, that's hot. But I'm not too worried because these will be going into the oven, and that will help that caramel melt and spread across the bottom when these are being cooked in the oven. So that's enough. I'm not going to mess about with those anymore. Let's move on to making the creme part of our creme caramel. We need to have 2 pints of milk over a medium heat. This has already been on the heat for a couple of minutes, and because it's been a couple of minutes, we can add in 4 tablespoons of sugar into it. I'm using the golden caster sugar again. Just going to stir that through, and then they say just to leave that to come up to a boil. So while that's coming up to a boil, we need 6 medium eggs, which we're going to add a couple of teaspoons of vanilla extract to. I'm using my homemade vanilla extract, which needs a real top up, to be honest. I made that like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and it's taken that long to go through it. It's good. These are whisk up. I think we're essentially making like a custard here. And we just leave those until our milk and sugar have come up to a boil. Okay, the milk's come to a boil, so this needs to come off the heat. And next this will need to be combined with the eggs, but first let me show you my tip for when you're cooking or boiling milk over a hob. So I like to get a bowl, preferably a metal bowl, because it keeps the heat. And then I get a sieve, and then I like to pour my milk through the sieve, because best will in the world, when you are cooking milk over a hob, sometimes some of it will catch on the bottom of the pan, or you will get a bit of a skin, and this will just get rid of any horrible bits like that. So you've got nice, clear milk and sugar mixture there. So here's where we mix the milk mixture, well, that's hard to say, with the eggs, but they say temper first by putting a spoon of the milk in the eggs and mixing slowly. You can do this once or twice before pouring all the milk in. This stops the eggs from curdling, scrambling. So we're going to do that first. I've transferred my eggs to a larger bowl. I'm just going to put we'll put a couple of spoons in there. I'm probably going to do this a few times actually, just to be on the safe side. Right, I'll probably put about a dozen spoonfuls of the milk mixture into there, just to be on the safe side. So I'm just going to put in the rest of it, a little bit at the time, just because I don't want to go overboard. Right, now I'm satisfied that's not going to scramble. I'm just going to pour and stir, pour and stir, pour and stir, pour and stir. There we go, that is all combined, and I'm happy that's not scrambled. Now the girls say using a ladle, spoon the mixture into the cups until they're about 3/4 full. Well, I don't trust myself to use a ladle, so over here I have transferred my mixture into a jug, because hopefully I'll be more accurate with that. I'll be honest, looking at my caramel, I may have done it slightly on the darker side, but I'm going to press on because I think it's still going to be good once you get all that lovely custard into there. But really, you should do it in a lighter pan so you can actually see how dark your caramel is. So this is probably a bit darker than I wanted it. But again, I think it's still going to taste great. So I'm going to try and pour some of my mixture into this, being very careful, about 3/4 full. And then we just need to pop some foil onto the tops of these so it stops them from burning on the top and overcooking basically. And then these can go into the oven to cook gently at 150 degrees C for an hour and 10 minutes. Our creme caramels have had an hour and 10 minutes in the oven, and you can see these are steaming hot. So what I want to do is I'm just going to carefully move these. I'm just going to take these out of the water to help stop the cooking process, because they are going to continue to cook because they are going to be very hot. With these out of the water, I'm going to leave these to cool down out of the water for a bit until I can handle them a bit better. And then I'm going to transfer them into the fridge so they can set up completely. They're probably going to need quite some time to set up completely, maybe about 4 hours. They're probably best left overnight, but we'll see how we get on. I'm going to give them about maybe 3 or 4 hours and see how well they've set. And then hopefully you can try one and see how the creme caramels have come out, because I can't wait, to be honest, because I love these. Right, it's been about 4 hours and our creme caramel has set nicely. It's got a lovely bounce on it. So I want to try and get this turned out and taste it. So I think the best way to do this is I've got a bowl of hot water here, and I'm just going to pop this in the hot water for a moment just to kind of loosen it up, not for very long, just for like 5-10 seconds. Oh, that sounds like it's come out. Oh yes, there we go, that has come out. That looks like a creme caramel. That looks absolutely lovely. A little bit of stickage there, so I probably could have had it in that hot water for perhaps about another 5-10 seconds just to help it out a bit easier. But that has come out. Let's pour that caramel out. There we go, that is a creme caramel. That looks fantastic, and I can't wait to give it a try, so I'm not gonna. Let's go give this a taste. Right, here's our creme caramel from Farmer de Lupo, And I personally cannot wait to try this, so let's get stuck in. Let's get a nice helping of that. Look at that wobble, that looks really good. Cheers. Oh yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Oh, I thought the caramel was going to be on the slightly bitter side because I thought I had overdone it, because I had that dark pan and I couldn't really see how done it was, and it was darker than I thought it should be. But to be honest, with the lovely custard underneath, the combination works really well. Would I have made sure that it was a little bit lighter? Probably yes, but that was down to me, not the recipe. It's still really, really nice. It is still a beautiful creme caramel and it's come out really, really well. And this is my first time making it and it's worked. So I am very, very happy. And I'm just standing here eating this. That came out so well. And that's 3 for 3. That is 3 wonderful recipes from Lucy and Kelly's book, Fame de Lupo. And girls, you have absolutely nailed it. Those were 3 great recipes, 3 that worked really, really well. They were all delicious. They were all nice and simple to follow. The salad was light and refreshing and just hit the spot. The gnocchi came out really, really well. My previous attempt of that just did not come out like that. So that was beautiful as well. Went really, really well with that pesto that I made. And I'm definitely going to be using that recipe over and over again. And the creme caramels came out beautifully as well. They set nicely. And I think if I was just a bit more careful with the caramel, that would have been spot on as well. But as it is, it's still beautifully tasty. And in my new kitchen, when I move, I will have a gas hob, so I'll have more control over the heat, because I think that hob is horrible. I cannot get a consistent heat with that thing. So I'm still very, very happy with how that came out. So there you go, that is my friends Lucy and Kelly's cookbook, Fame de Lupo. And you might be thinking, I'm being a little bit biased here, but I think that is absolutely fantastic. Those 3 recipes came out really, really well. And if they hadn't come out well, I would have said so. But they did. They were really easy to follow. They came out beautifully. What more do you want from a cookbook? I've never been that successful with gnocchi, and that creme caramel for a first attempt came out beautifully. So I have absolutely nothing to complain about. So it is a beautiful cookbook, and that is just 3 of 50 recipes in there. So you can pick this up now on Amazon. I'm going to put a link down in the description, so you should go and buy it as well, because they have really put so much love and so much passion and have spent so much time putting all their efforts into this. It just shines through, and it just is a beautiful tribute to their Nanna and Grandad. So I do urge you, if you are watching this, go and buy a copy, because it is absolutely fantastic. It's got beautiful photos throughout it of the food, of Lucy and Kelly, and of course their Nanna and Grandad. And also it's got their beautiful letter to them in it, which talks about the cookbook that they made them about 11 or 12 years ago, and that is kind of the root of all of this. This is something that they promised their granddad that they would do, and they did it. They did it, and this is it. So absolutely do go and pick up a copy. I'm sure I'm going to be buying other copies of this, probably to give as gifts. So I think it's wonderful. And maybe I am biased, but you saw the results, they came out brilliantly, and you can't speak higher than that. So that's it from me. I really do hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to go and finish off my creme caramel because it is beautiful. And Lucy and Kelly, well done again. That is a wonderful cookbook. You absolutely smashed it. It is brilliant. And I'm sure your Nanna and Grandad are really, really proud. So that's it from me. I really hope you liked the cookbook, and I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell to find out when new videos are going up, and I will see you next time on Big Foodie Geek. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.